So we're going to go ahead and start. My name is Carlos Quatella. I am the Graduate School of Education Admissions Advisor, and I work with Holly from the EI department here at PSU to recruit students and tell students about the program. And tonight we're fortunate to have Holly do a webinar for us. And so I'm going to go ahead and transition it over to her. But if you have any questions, go ahead and you can use the chat portion to ask your questions, and we'll get to those towards the end of the webinar. So Holly, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, welcome. Thank you, Carlos. As Carlos said, I'm Holly Hicks-Small. I'm an assistant professor here at Portland State University in the Early Intervention, Early Childhood Special Education Master's Program. You can see on the screen my contact details and Carlos's contact details if you need to reach either one of us after this webinar. So today we're going to briefly go over the program, including some program highlights, career opportunities for those with a license in early childhood intervention, the application procedures, and then we thought we would run through a few frequently asked questions and leave time at the end for you to type the questions that you have in the chat box, and we'll try to answer those for you. So first, what is this program? For those of you that might be new to early intervention, early childhood special education, it's really a program and career for people who enjoy working with very young children and their families. These are young children who have developmental delays or disabilities, or who are very likely to develop delays. These are children who are not reaching their expected developmental milestones, such as speaking or walking. They're children who have identified disabilities, such as cerebral palsy or autism. And our goal is really to identify people for the master's program who are very passionate about working with kids and their families. We really try to equip our graduates with all the necessary knowledge and tools to feel very confident and successful in their career. And so we provide many opportunities for you to learn and grow throughout the program, both through coursework, but also through hands-on practice, working with children, licensed teachers, and the children's families. So we have three options. One is just the initial license. So if you have an undergraduate degree and you want to go back to school to get your license in early intervention, early childhood special education, you would apply for this program. If you already hold a license in elementary education, for example, you could do an endorsement program, which would give you a license to work with children birth through 8 who have delays and disabilities. Most students ought to actually go for the combined initial licensure and master's program. The master's program can be a standalone program completed without a license. But the way we've designed the program is for students to complete the master's program and initial license at the same time. The initial licensure program is 55 credits. If you wanted to add on the master's to that initial licensure, it's just 9 credits or 3 courses that you complete at the same time as doing that initial licensure. The endorsement program for early intervention is fewer credits because That's for people who already hold that license, so it's 21 credits. If you're completing just the master's program with no license, you would have 45 credits to complete. One thing that's very unique to this program is that the program is fully online, and that allows students to continue working. Many of our students are already working in the field for education service districts or in another occupation, and they need to or want to continue to work while they go to school. And having the online program allows them to complete weekly content at their leisure, so when it fits best with their schedule. So we call that asynchronous course delivery, meaning that students are not coming together at exactly the same time, although they are engaging in discussion. So there's a lot of peer and instructor support through the online platform that we use. And so it allows them to access course content, including in video, audio recordings, and reading materials at a pace and a time that works for them. And the courses are sequenced so that they build off of one another. So for example, students will take a course in assessment before they complete their field-based practice, which requires them to actually carry out an assessment process with a child. And so each course is really building on a previous course, and students are completing this coursework over a period of 2 years if they're doing the initial licensure program. If you're doing the endorsement, most of the courses fall to the first year. It's a part-time program that is fully online. So as I said before, in reference to the assessment class, students take coursework online, but they have many opportunities to apply this knowledge. In particular, there are 3 different what we call student teaching experiences or practicum placements. One is focused on infant and toddler development, and students will spend 9 to 10 hours of face-to-face time per week with a licensed teacher, and that amounts to 90 to 100 hours over the course of a term. And students are generally seeing these young infants and toddlers within the natural environments where they have services delivered to them, and so those are normally done through home visits. Students also complete a preschool-focused placement that is also 9 to 10 hours a week, about 100 hours over the course of the term, and that's for 3 to 5-year-olds. And again, students are placed with licensed teachers. For students who are doing the initial teaching license, they'll go on to do a full-time student teaching experience, and that's 40 hours per week for a term. So some of the program highlights that we have faculty who are specialized in different substantive areas that include assistive technology, visual impairment, English language learners, autism, international early childhood intervention issues, screening and assessment, positive behavior support, and low incidence disabilities. And our students have opportunities to collaborate with faculty members, and that's very important both for the faculty and the student experience. So for students who are completing a master's degree, they'll do a culminating project, and that's often when they link up with a faculty member that has an interest very similar to their own. So I think that's one program highlight. I think another thing that makes the program unique is that we have a field placement specialist who identifies the student teaching experience or practicum opportunity for the student. And we try very hard to place students in a setting that will allow them to grow professionally based on what they've come into the program with, so based on previous experiences and their hopes for their career in the short and long-term future. And as I said before, the program is also unique in that it is part-time. That means that you would be taking 2 courses most terms. During the summer, that goes up to 3 courses. It does take 2 years to complete the program, and our next cohort will start in June 2016. So we're not doing an annual enrollment at this time, but are starting in June 2016. There are a number of career opportunities for graduates of the program, and we have very high success rates for those wanting a career in early intervention, early childhood special education. Our graduates find employment when they finish the program. They work as early intervention home visitors, teachers in inclusive or specialized classrooms. More and more early interventionists are working as consultants and supporting other teachers, so going around and providing advice and guidance to mainstream classroom teachers. Currently, there is a high need for personnel, and that seems to be growing. There's also good job advancement opportunities within agencies. So you might start in one position, for example, as a home visitor, and through ongoing professional development through your agency, you may find that you really like the area of assessment, for example, and become the specialist within that agency for assessing young children. So I think it's a career that is very stimulating and it's very, very rewarding, and you can continually learn over the course of your career. In terms of applying, we have a couple links listed here. You would want to first apply for admissions with the Portland State University Graduate School, and then second, you would apply directly to the early intervention program through a program called TK20. Carlos might want to take a minute to just mention something about this process. So I'll turn it over to you, Carlos. So I'm not hearing. Okay.
Now I can hear. I think you guys can hear me now. So the university is going to be changing the application process a little bit. They created an Office of Graduate Admissions, where previous years they didn't have that. They had an Office of Graduate Studies. And so they're going to move to a one common application process. And so right now it looks like, and why we haven't changed the slide yet is it's not definite, but it looks like step number 2 in terms of applying to the program is going to be essentially eliminated. So you'd be doing step number 2 and actually step number 1. So hopefully that makes sense. So step number 2 is eventually going to be eliminated, so you'll be able to apply to the university and the program by just applying to the university. So hopefully that transition is going to be taking place fairly quickly. They're still working on like creating applications, things like that, but if they don't have that done in time, then we'll follow this procedure, but we'll notify you if that's the case. But right now I think we're going to go ahead and say that that one-step application is going to be ready by September 1st.
Thank you, Carlos. So in terms of the application procedures, This next slide here, these prerequisites aren't likely to change. So these are things that you can be working toward if you don't already have these courses. We do have a requirement that students come into the program with a course in child psychology. This course is available at Portland State, but the course is also available at other universities. And if you go on to the Early Intervention website at Portland State University and click on prerequisites, you can see a list of courses that meet the requirement for the Psych 460 Child Development prerequisite. We do also require one special education course, Survey of Exceptional Children. Again, that's offered at Portland State University, and we also approve that course from other universities. However, it's really important if you're not taking it at Portland State University or from one of the other pre-approved universities listed on the website, that you get in touch with me or with Carlos to see if the course will meet our requirements as a prerequisite. We also require students to take basic skills tests in reading, writing, and math. Many students take the CBEST or the Praxis. And again, you can find out more information about those prerequisites and tests on the Early Intervention website of the Graduate School of Education at PSU. So students often have questions about other requirements for the application. We require a personal statement. We really want to understand why you were drawn into the field of early intervention. We require students to submit 2 letters of recommendation. And these letters should really address your experience working with very young children with special needs, your previous academic work, and your overall character. So you could ask a former professor or someone that you've worked with who knows how you work with young children. We are looking for you to submit your resume that will help us also to understand your previous experience. And all transcripts are submitted to us as part of the application process, including transcripts from Portland State University. We need a copy of the basic skills test that I mentioned before, and then we also carry out a brief interview, and we can do that in person or virtually. And during the interview, it's not just for us, it's really for you as well. You'll have an opportunity to ask us questions, and we use this time to get to know you in order to look at the goodness of fit between your professional goals and our program. And we look at all the information that you present to us, including the personal statements, letters, resume, transcripts, and test scores as part of the whole package. And sometimes students want to know if they have to have a background in special education to apply to the program, and you don't. The answer is no. Some students do, or they have an undergraduate degree in Family and Human Studies or education, social work. It really just depends. So you don't have to come in with a degree in special education.
Another thing I'd like to add to that as well is you don't need to have the prerequisite coursework completed to apply, or you don't need the basic skills test completed by the time you apply. You need those courses to be completed before you're allowed to actually begin the program. So if you don't have, your basic skills test completed by September 1st, that's okay. You still would have time to be able to complete that.
Thanks, Carlos. That's a great point. And on a really good note, we don't require the GREs. You don't have to worry about taking that. We do have some things that need to be done after admissions. Carlos named a few that you can do after application, but after you're actually admitted, You will need to take a civil rights exam, and we do have a special education knowledge test that's required at the end of the program, and that's the National Evaluation Series. We require students to go through TSPC fingerprinting before they do their first field placement, their practicum placement, and there's also another form that's required for placement. So here are some frequently asked questions that other interested potential students have had. The first one is, can I take courses before June 2016? And unfortunately, we try to keep our course sizes smaller, and because they're sequenced, it is a cohort model, we can't have students enrolling in courses before the next cohort begins in June 2016. So the answer at this time would be no. However, it's a great time to work on your prerequisites, and if you don't have those completed, so you could go ahead and take those at Portland State or some of the community colleges. So that's question number 2. You can take those prerequisites at a university or community college that's not Portland State. The third question that I often receive is, if I live outside of Oregon, do I pay out-of-state tuition? And the answer is no, which is very attractive to many students who would normally have to pay out-of-state tuition, even if they were moving into Oregon. So you can actually enroll in this program because it's an online program and live outside of Oregon or anywhere within Oregon. So we do have students who are currently located in Montana and California and Washington enrolled in the program. So the number of hours per week that are required for student teaching, this is also a common question as students try to juggle their family, home life, and for many their work life as well. So as I said earlier, it's 9 to 10 hours a week that you need to spend in your student teaching placement. And that's over the course of 2 terms, and then there is the full-time student teaching, and that is 40 hours a week for 1 term for students completing the initial license. Our course sizes range from 20 to 25, and we try to keep them small so that there's a lot of interaction between students. And yes, you will have an advisor assigned to you. That will likely be me. And so you do have individual attention if you have any concerns or need advice about your coursework or any other issues that relate to the program that you're concerned about. We do require a master's thesis or comprehensive. It's a culminating project, but it's done a little bit differently here at Portland State. So students often want to know about that. That's required for the master's degree. Basically, this culminating project is the work of 3 terms. You take an introductory research course. You follow that up a 2nd term covering important issues related to early childhood intervention. And during that time, you do a lot of work reviewing literature and discussing major issues related to the field, and identify what you want to do for a culminating project. And that project is done as a group. You can join a faculty member and their research team, or you can join a small group of other students and carry out a research project together. So it's quite a nice collaborative effort. Another question that we receive is, will I be able to work in an elementary school? That's often a question we get from students who want to know if they'll be hired by an elementary school. Although this license does allow you to work with children between birth and 8 years, it is rare that students would go on to work in an elementary school setting. In most cases, students are going to be employed by education service districts upon graduation, but that will depend on the area that you live. But I think that it would be very important if your goal is to look if your goal is to work on an elementary school, that we have a follow-up conversation about what that would mean if you completed this program versus another program at Portland State that is more focused on elementary. Our coursework is primarily focused on children between the ages of birth and 5 years. Will PSU help me find employment? We certainly have strong connections within the community for those students that are interested in finding employment in the Portland metro area and within Oregon. Very strong connections with education service districts, and often they're coming to us and asking if we have students who are getting ready to graduate. Our students get to know those education service districts really well through their field placement, and the same would be true for students in other states. So through those practicum placements, it's really like a long-term interview. We also have career fairs and certainly prepare students in developing a professional resume and giving advice on interviewing. So we do try to make as many opportunities available to help students find employment. Whenever possible, we try to offer scholarships. In the past, we have had a grant from the Office of Special Education and have been able to offer tuition support. This is a personnel preparation grant, and if it's received, students are required to work in the field of special education for a period of time to repay that loan through service while they're employed. That particular grant is not always available, and at this time I can't promise it will be available in 2016. There are a number of other scholarships that are available through Portland State, and there is a link off of the education website on scholarships and financial aid. If you want to receive financial aid, you'll need to complete the FASSA form well in advance of the program start date. So that's something else you could be looking at doing while you're waiting for the program to start. So those are all the questions that I had that I could think of. And so now I think it'd be great if we can just open it up to questions that you might have about the program. So if you have any questions, feel free to type into the comment box. So we have one question. The question is, I currently work in a preschool that's not necessarily for children with special needs, and would that work for a placement? So our placements require that there is a licensed teacher who has licensure in early intervention, early childhood special education, and that person is the mentoring professional for the student, and so that would be the first requirement. The second requirement is that you have enough opportunities to work with children who have delays and disabilities, and so we would really need to review that particular setting that you're currently within. We do try and help students maintain their existing employment, but it's also important that students have opportunities to work with a range of children, and every student that's in the program is required to develop a work sample and accomplish a number of objectives that are required not just by Portland State University, but the Oregon teaching licensure standards. So we could certainly, discuss different placements with you, but those are the basic minimum requirements.
Are there any additional questions? It looks like someone is typing. Okay, it looks like the next question is, the survey for exceptional learners prerequisite, is it offered in community college, and if so, which ones? That's a great question, and there are some local community colleges here in Oregon, specifically in the Portland metro area, that offer the course. Clackamas Community College offers it. That's Ed 169. And let's see, PCC, Portland Community College, offers the course as well, and the listing there is Ed 251. That's those are the only two community colleges that have an equivalent for the SPED 418.
I would just add that if you're a student outside of Oregon, or you've identified that course somewhere else, that we go through the necessary steps to look into the course that you've identified as a potential course to fulfill that prerequisite.
Yeah, we do offer a course substitution process. So essentially you would have to provide a syllabus of that equivalent, and then go through the process of getting that course substituted. It looks like there's another additional question coming through.
So that's a great question. Right now, we don't have a student in your area. The question was about a placement in a specific area in Oregon. You would not need to make those contacts. Actually, we have a student who is working in that area of Oregon and is in charge of all of the assessments, and we do try to stay in touch with our graduates, which is very helpful. And so we have the field placement specialist, and that person would work with you and would be working with the different agencies in your area to set up the placement, and that would be in collaboration with you to make sure that you also felt it was going to be a placement that met your needs.
So it looks like that was the last question. You have our contact information, and this presentation is being recorded and will also be uploaded to Holly's websites. So if you want to come back and look at any of the information that she's provided or any of the content, it should be posted up on her site by the end of the week. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to email either of us. And Holly, is there anything else you want to add?
No, just to second that, Carlos, that really if there are any additional questions that people have after the webinar, that they should feel free to get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to answer them.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and look for the presentation to be live by end of the week.